Howdy Earthlings! In my last tutorial I showed you the Fool, explained the Major Arcana's general idea, and showed you what it could mean in a reading. I'm back and doing it again with the Magician. As I mentioned in the previous video, the Major Arcana represents the journey of the Fool on their way to enlightenment, the world. The Magician is the next step and is an incredibly easy card to understand. There isn't really many misconceptions with this card. It kind of just answers everything. Remember, if you intuitive read, you may get different readings than I do because everyone interprets art differently and every deck has different art, especially if you use a deck other than the original Rider-Waite-Smith deck. I'm taking these meanings from multiple sources, and if you've been intuitive reading thus far, then stick around because learning the deeper meanings and what Waite intended for his deck can help expand your readings and make them deeper. Let's start with a media example of the Magician. In the anime JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Stardust Crusaders, Jotaro Kujo is in a holding cell for being a hooligan, and his grandfather comes in to bust him out. Get used to the JoJo references because they mention all of the Major Arcana. Even though Jotaro's stand is Star Platinum, the star, he's given a fool's beginning. Jotaro is very much the fool here in his jail cell. He messed up, and he stands on the precipice, his grandfather representing a new path forward, and the jail representing falling off that cliff. Should he not change his course, then this cell may be his future, but even his future adventure is him essentially jumping off a cliff into the unknown. That's when Avdol is introduced, as Jotaro's grandfather tells him to force Jotaro out of his cell. Avdol summons his stand, and this is a major point in the series, as the prior seasons didn't have stands. Stands represent the wielder's spirit, and Avdol lets loose Magician Red, a big buff birdman made of fire. This is a good representation of the Magician because it represents a major step for Jotaro and the series, as this is where the series identity was first set in stone. Magician Red, of course, has power over the element of fire and can manifest it freely, and his wielder, Avdol, fulfills the remaining aspects of the Magician very well. Avdol proves to be an excellent tutor to Jotaro, even immediately. He fights Jotaro's stand, and says that if he is to continue fighting Jotaro, he'll have to pull out all the stops, that he'll have to fight Jotaro with enough force to hospitalize him, an incredibly harsh lesson for the Fool. As the series continues, Avdol fulfills the teacher role in a much nicer way. He names Jotaro's stand, and proves invaluable as he teaches them about stands. He's also the one with the tarot deck, showing his mastery over the elements and manifestation through tarot. The Magician represents beginnings too, and Avdol is the first to start stuff, the first to fight Jotaro, the first to show his stand, and the first to try and fight the main villain, Dio. So this is the Magician, and of course, a lot of its definitions match those that I mentioned with Avdol. But let's examine the card's art next. The Magician is number 1. Ones in tarot represent potential, inherent energy of the suit, and new beginnings. As this isn't a suit card, then inherent energy might not apply here, but as you can see, the Magician's table shows a cup, wand, pentacles, and sword. In tarot, things like passion, relationships, mental clarity, and the like all have physical representations. That's the cups, swords, wands, and pentacles. So raw energy can apply here, especially if the querent, the person who asks the question, is asking something that relates to one of these suits. But the presence of these on the Magician's table shows that he has a mastery over these suits and their associated elements of fire, earth, air, and water. The Magician is able to shape those elements to his will and manifest their energies into the resulting material or immaterial benefits. Now, if we look at the Magician's hands pointing to the air and one pointing to the ground, this means as above, so below. As above, so below is interpreted to mean that the celestial has influence over the earthly. For example, how the position of the sun has influence over the seasons, or how the moon affects the ocean and its waves. This sort of falls into manifestation. If we warp the immaterial, it can manifest into the material. In the Magician's skyward hand is a double-ended white wand representing how the Magician is a conduit channeling energy from the immaterial or the celestial to the material or earthly. His red robe representing passion, willpower, egotism, or rage and revenge. The white one representing purity or inexperience. The flowers at his feet are Rose of Sharon and Lilies of the Valley. This shows that the Magician is able to successfully manifest, cultivate, and fulfill their potential. Lastly, the infinity symbol and Ouroboros spell, a snake eating its own tail, represents the Magician's unlimited potential, energy, eternity, and the cycle of nature, life, and energy in general. So let's break down what this card could mean in some common readings. In a question asked by a male identifying querent, the Magician can represent them in the answer or subject. That's an easy one. The next card we'll talk about, the High Priestess, is similar, but your male querent is the Magician, and this means that he's in a position of control or acquiring control. they're level-headed and knowledgeable. They're probably perfectly fine or are already on their way to figuring out the answer themselves. It's possible that they may have already figured out their answer and are just coming to you for confirmation of it. The magician can also be a representation of the male person of interest in the querent's question. So if you have someone asking about a guy and you get the magician is the guy. Similarly, they're knowledgeable or they're likely someone that the querent could learn from. They might represent a person the querent should confide in and seek counsel from, a sort of teacher-like figure. Reversed, the male querent might be a little conceited or they're failing to reach their potential. In questions of love, the magician may be a guy that the querent is interested in. In this case, the other cards should be consulted for more context. It's likely that reaching out to this person and just talking to them could result in their relationship transforming into love. Even if the querent isn't interested in a guy, the magician means it's time for action and communication. But reverse, it could be that they missed their chance, or that the guy isn't ready yet, or might straight up be bad for the querent. They might be a manipulator, or too focused on themselves. Reversed, they're someone you should be on the lookout for to avoid. When talking about business, the magician means that you're already on the right track. You're already manifesting your wealth, or on your way to manifesting it. But you need to take the steps to proceed to your growth. Overall, the magician is an indicator of success. If reversed, you're likely not using your skills to the fullest, or worse, you might not be deserving of the wealth because you're being manipulative, or maybe you're being deceptive. You need to be more honest with those around you. Basically, the magician represents the strongest sense of the energies on his table and teaching them. Cups are relationships, so clear communication and charisma are important. Wands represent passion and action, so taking direct, immediate action. Swords for confrontations and choices, so you need to make an important decision. And pentacles can represent success. That's why you also want the rest of the cards in the reading for additional context. If you're doing a single card reading, you may want to toss an extra card down. I hope that helps, and I'll see you next time with the High Priestess, a card that's quite similar in some ways to the Magician, but in a more feminine form, and more about secrets and mystery. Make sure to sub if you don't want to miss that. Thanks for watching, and thanks to the patrons on Patreon who help me make videos for all the things I'm interested in. I don't make videos just here. But thanks again to Paper, Faye Penguin, Momentary Unicorn, Aurora the Puppy Moth, Sly, Nat, Selena, Marius, Yeenie, Warm Syrup, Rask, Ver, Beef, Bait, Sly again, Colorado Blue, Vaderson, Linky, Linky again, Splackjack, and Sushion. I appreciate all the support. Ad revenue has been absolutely terrible on Maine, so it's very cool of you all to help out. Thanks again, and bye-bye.